The morning sun rose over the hills of horizon, casting long shadows across the small human research outpost. Metal buildings gleamed in the light, a tiny patch of Earth technology on this distant world. Dr. Alex Morgan checked readings on a tablet as he walked between lab buildings. The air was fresh and cool. This planet was a perfect place to study new life forms. Far from Earth, but safe, or so everyone thought. "Dad, come look at this," called a voice from the greenhouse. Alex smiled. His 16-year-old daughter, Ellie, was supposed to be back on Earth at school. But when summer break came, she begged to visit the colony. How could he say no? She had her mother's curiosity and love for science. Inside the greenhouse, Ellie pointed at a blue plant with moving tendrils. "It responds to sound. Watch." She hummed softly, and the plant's thin arms reached toward her. "Interesting," Alex said. "Make sure to record your observations." "Already did." Ellie tapped her own small tablet. "Mom said I could help with her field work today. Just stay close to the outpost." Alex reminded her. "We detected some strange energy from the mountains yesterday." Ellie rolled her eyes. "Dad, I'm not a kid anymore." I know." Alex ruffled her hair. "Just being careful." Across the outpost, 48 people went about their day. Scientists studied samples. Engineers fixed machines. Security guards, only 4 of them, made their rounds. This was a research mission, not a military one. Dr. Lisa Morgan, Alex's wife, and the team's biology lead prepared for a trip to collect samples. "Will you be okay monitoring the lab tests?" she asked Alex. "Of course." He kissed her cheek. "Take Ellie with you. She's excited about that new flower species." The day passed quietly. The 3 colony suns began to set, painting the sky orange and purple. Workers gathered in the mess hall for dinner. The mood was light as people shared stories and laughed. Then the alarms went off. "Unidentified objects entering atmosphere," announced the automated system. All personnel returned to main building. Alex rushed to the window. 5 dark shapes cut through the clouds, moving fast. They were ships, but not human designs. They had sharp edges and glowed with green light. "Lisa, Ellie," he called over his communicator. "Where are you?" "Just outside." Lisa's voice came back, breathless. "We're running to the main building now." The security chief, a retired military man named Tom, handed out the few weapons they had. "Stay calm, people. This could be a friendly visit." But deep down, no one believed that. The strange ships landed in a circle around the outpost. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then doors opened in their sides, and tall figures stepped out. They looked like insects walking on 2 legs. Their bodies were covered in hard shells, green and black. They had 4 arms and round heads with many eyes. The biggest one stepped forward, looking at the humans who watched from windows. It made clicking sounds that hurt human ears. "They're scanning our buildings," the tech officer whispered. "They're cutting through our communications." Alex grabbed Ellie's hand. "Come with me. Now." He pulled her toward the back of the building. "But Mom," Ellie protested. "She'll be fine." Alex lied. He could hear the aliens breaking through the main door. He led Ellie to a small room hidden behind storage containers. It was the emergency communications bunker, designed to withstand attacks. "Stay here," he said, typing a code to open the heavy door. "Use the system to call Earth if you can break through their jamming. Don't come out until it's safe." "Dad." "No." Ellie grabbed his arm. "Come in with me." Outside, people were screaming. The aliens were inside the building. "I need to help the others." Alex hugged her tight. "I love you, Ellie." He pushed her inside and shut the door. Through the small window, he saw her crying face as the lock engaged. Then he turned to face whatever was coming. The aliens moved through the outpost, catching humans who tried to run. They used strange guns that fired nets of energy. No one was killed, but everyone was caught. Resources, the lead alien clicked in its strange language. Take them all. By midnight, the outpost was empty except for one hidden room, where a terrified girl tried to make a radio work. Ellie sat in the dark bunker, her knees pulled to her chest. The only light came from small screens that lined one wall. Through tears, she watched security feeds showing the aliens moving through the empty outpost. "Come on, work," she whispered, trying again to power up the emergency transmitter. The aliens were blocking all signals, but this system was special. It used old technology, designed to cut through jamming. After 3 tries, a green light blinked on. The transmitter was working. Ellie wiped her eyes and leaned toward the microphone. Her voice shook as she spoke. "This is Ellie Morgan from Horizon Research Outpost. We are under attack. Unknown aliens have taken everyone. My parents, all the scientists, everyone is gone." She paused, fighting back tears. "I'm hiding in the emergency bunker. I don't know how long I can stay here. Please, if anyone hears this, please help us." The transmission sent, beaming its message toward Earth, millions of miles away. It would take hours to reach home. Ellie waited in the small room, watching the aliens through security cameras. They were searching every building, taking equipment and supplies. Soon, they would find her. Admiral James Walker sat in the main briefing room of Earth's United Defense Command. Gray-haired and stern-faced, he had led Earth's combined forces for 15 years. Today was supposed to be about budgets and training exercises. "Sir," a young officer interrupted, holding a tablet. "We just received an emergency transmission from Horizon Colony." Walker frowned. "Horizon? That's just a science outpost." "Yes, sir, but you need to hear this." The officer played the message. Ellie's frightened voice filled the room. Everyone fell silent as they listened to the girl's plea for help. Walker's face turned to stone. 6 years ago, he had lost his wife and son in a border attack. He knew what it meant to be alone and afraid. Without speaking, he pressed a red button on his command console. Alarms began to sound throughout the building. "Sir," asked his second in command, "that's the broken nest protocol. That's for full-scale invasions. A child is alone on a colony under alien attack," Walker said quietly. "That's all I need to know." Across Earth, military bases received the alert. For the first time in human history, all armed forces prepared for a single mission. On Horizon, Ellie watched the aliens load large containers onto their ships. Through one camera, she caught a glimpse of people inside those containers. They were alive but not moving. "Mom, Dad," she whispered, touching the screen. A noise outside the bunker made her jump. The aliens were in the corridor. They were getting closer. Ellie looked around for somewhere to hide. The bunker was small, just a desk, chair, and communication equipment. There was a small vent in the ceiling. Could she fit through it? She climbed onto the desk and pushed the vent cover. It opened. Ellie pulled herself up, just as the door to the bunker began to spark. The aliens were cutting through. From inside the vent, she watched as the door fell open. 3 of the insect-like creatures entered, looking around with their many eyes. They clicked to each other, examining the transmitter. One of them looked up toward the vent. Ellie held her breath. The alien raised a long arm, pointing at her hiding place. On Earth, Admiral Walker stepped onto the bridge of the UDC flagship Retribution. Officers worked at stations around him, preparing the massive warship for launch. "All systems ready, sir," reported the ship's captain. "The fleet will follow our jump." Walker nodded. "How long to reach Horizon?" "With the new jump drive, 3 days, sir. That's if it works as designed." "It will work," Walker said firmly. "It has to." On screens around the bridge, messages appeared from other ships. The largest fleet in human history was ready to move. Walker looked at a picture of Ellie Morgan that had come with her personnel file. Just a teenager with her whole life ahead of her. "Begin jump sequence," he ordered. "We're coming for you, kid. Hold on." Stars stretched and folded as the mighty ships of Earth's military vanished into the darkness, carrying humanity's response to a distant cry for help. The alien reached toward the vent where Ellie hid. Its long fingers almost touched her face. Then a loud noise came from outside. The aliens turned their heads, clicking to each other. After a moment, they left the bunker, forgetting about the vent. Ellie let out a breath. She had to move. This hiding place wasn't safe anymore. When she was sure they were gone, she dropped back down into the bunker. On the security screens, she saw what had saved her. One of the colony's power generators had exploded. The aliens were rushing to check it. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered. Her father had always said the old generators were set to overload if tampered with. It seemed the aliens had learned this the hard way. Ellie packed a small bag with water, food bars, and a medical kit from the bunker's supplies. She couldn't stay here. She needed to find a better hiding place. Earth was in motion. Military bases around the world buzzed with activity. Soldiers said goodbye to families. Engineers worked day and night to prepare ships and weapons. In orbit, 27 warships gathered. The Retribution led them, its massive engines glowing blue. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. Admiral Walker stood before the United Defense Council, facing questions from 12 serious-faced leaders. "This response is not proportional," said one councilman. "We don't even know who these aliens are." "They attacked our people," Walker replied. "They took a child's parents." One outpost, "Admiral, is this worth starting an interstellar war?" Walker's eyes were cold. "When humanity first reached the stars, we made a promise. No human colony would ever stand alone. No cry for help would go unanswered." He played Ellie's message again. The room fell silent at the sound of her frightened voice. "A child called for help," Walker said quietly. "I intend to answer." The council voted. The mission was approved. On the ships, soldiers prepared. Men and women checked weapons, studied maps of horizon, and wrote messages to loved ones they might never see again. In the Retribution's training room, Commander Diane Foster drilled her Marine unit. They were the best, the ones who would land first and face whatever waited on horizon. "We have limited information," she told her team. "Unknown enemy numbers, unknown weapons. What we do know is that there are human hostages." A young Marine raised his hand. "Commander, is it true this whole fleet is moving because of one girl?" Foster looked around the room. "That girl is one of ours. That's all that matters." The Marines nodded. They understood. On horizon, Ellie crawled through maintenance tunnels beneath the colony. She had studied the colony maps many times. Her mother had called her too curious about how everything worked. Now that knowledge was keeping her alive. Through small vents, she watched the aliens. They were loading the last containers onto their ships. Her parents were somewhere inside those metal boxes. Ellie reached the colony's storage area. It was quiet here. She found a small space between large crates and made herself a hiding place. As night fell, she tried to sleep, but strange noises kept her awake. The aliens were talking to someone. A new ship had arrived, larger than the others. Peering through a crack in the wall, Ellie saw the alien leader, taller than the others, with red markings on its shell. It seemed angry, making sharp clicking sounds and waving its 4 arms. A translator device on its chest suddenly spoke in broken English. "Search again. Find all humans. Must be complete." Ellie's heart sank. They knew someone was missing. They were looking for her. She curled up in her hiding place, hugging her knees. "Please hurry," she whispered, hoping somehow Admiral Walker could hear her. "Please come soon." In the darkness of space, the Earth fleet pushed their new jump engines to the limit. What should have taken weeks would now take days. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Walker watched the stars streak by. "Hold on, Ellie," he said to himself. "Earth is coming." 3 days passed on horizon. The aliens, who called themselves the Vrex, had almost finished loading their ships. They still searched for Ellie, but had not found her. Ellie moved between hiding places, never staying anywhere too long. She had grown thin and tired, but her eyes were sharp and watchful. From the colony's control room, she had learned how to use the security systems against the Vrex. When they searched one area, she would trigger alarms in another, sending them running. The alien leader, Grix, grew angry. His chess translator crackled as he shouted at his soldiers, "Find the missing human. We leave when count is complete." Ellie watched from a hidden vent. She needed more time. Earth's help had to be coming. In deep space, the Earth fleet prepared to exit jump space. Admiral Walker stood on the bridge of the Retribution, his uniform crisp despite days without proper sleep. "Jump complete in 3, 2, 1, announced the navigation officer. The stars stopped stretching. Normal space returned around them. Ahead, the planet horizon hung like a blue-green jewel. "Scan for alien vessels," Walker ordered. 6 ships detected in orbit, sir. 1 large command vessel and 5 smaller ships. Walker's eyes narrowed. Battle stations. All ships form attack positions. Throughout the fleet, alarms sounded. Fighters prepared to launch. Weapons powered up. "Open a channel to the alien vessels," Walker said. On horizon, everything stopped. The Vrex looked up at the sky, their many eyes wide with surprise. Their communication devices buzzed with urgent messages. Grix rushed to his command center. On screens, he saw the human ships appear from nowhere. Many ships, warships. How had they arrived so quickly? Vrex scouts had reported that humans did not have fast space travel. It should have taken them months to respond, not days. A message came through on all frequencies. A human voice, cold as space. "Attention alien vessels. This is Admiral James Walker of Earth's United Defense Command. You have taken our people. This is your only warning. Return them unharmed." Grix clicked his mandibles together. The Vrex had raided many species across the stars. None had ever come after them. None had ever been strong enough. "Prepare weapons," he ordered his crew. "Show these humans our power." Grix activated his translator. "Human ships. We are Vrex. We take what we want. Your colony is now ours. Leave or be destroyed." On the Retribution, Walker received the alien's response. His face showed no emotion. "Sir," said his second-in-command, "they're powering up weapons." Walker nodded. "Launch all fighters. Target their engines and weapons only. I want those ships disabled, not destroyed." There are humans aboard. Across the fleet, bay doors opened. Hundreds of fighter craft shot into space, moving in perfect formation. The Vrex fired first. Green energy beams reached out toward the Earth ships. But the humans were ready. Defensive shields glowed as they absorbed the attacks. Then Earth responded. Human fighters swarmed the alien ships like angry bees. They were smaller but faster, darting around the Vrex weapons. Precision strikes hit key systems. The smallest Vrex ship lost power first, its engines dying. Then another. Earth's larger warships moved closer, firing controlled bursts that cut through alien shields. In her hiding place, Ellie felt the ground shake. She climbed to a window and looked up. The sky was filled with light and fire. Ships moved in the darkness above, some small like stars, others large like moons. Her heart leaped. Those were Earth ships. Help had come. A loud explosion made her duck. One of the Vrex ships on the ground was trying to take off, but something hit it. The ship tilted, then crashed back down. From the window, Ellie saw smaller craft entering the atmosphere. They were shaped like arrowheads, moving fast toward the colony. "Earth Marines," she whispered, remembering pictures from school. They came. For the first time in days, Ellie smiled. But her smile faded quickly. The Vrex were rushing around now, moving the containers with humans inside. They were panicking. They might hurt the prisoners. They might hurt her parents. Ellie had to do something. But what could one girl do against alien soldiers? The Earth dropships cut through Horizon's atmosphere, leaving trails of fire behind them. Commander Diane Foster checked her weapons one last time as her ship rocked from side to side. 2 minutes to landing, shouted the pilot. In the main compartment, 20 Marines readied themselves. Their armor was dark blue with the Earth symbol on the shoulders. Each carried a rifle and sidearm. Remember, Foster told them, our first goal is to find the girl, Ellie Morgan. Our second is to locate and free all prisoners. The aliens are called Orcs. They have 4 arms and tough outer shells. Aim for the joints. The dropship touched down hard. The door opened with a hiss of air. Go, 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 Foster shouted. The Marines poured out, taking positions around the landing zone. 4 more dropships landed nearby, bringing more soldiers. The Orcs were not ready for such an attack. They had raided many peaceful worlds, but none had ever fought back like this. They fired green energy weapons from behind buildings, but their shots were wild and panicked. Earth Marines moved forward in groups, covering each other with practiced skill. When a Orc soldier appeared, precise shots brought it down. Foster checked her map. Team 1, secure the north side. Team 2, with me to the main building. The colony's control room should be there. Inside the colony, Ellie heard the fighting getting closer. The Orcs were moving the containers with prisoners toward their last ship. She had to do something. Using the maintenance tunnels, she made her way to the colony's communication room. Most of the equipment was broken, but one emergency radio still worked. Ellie turned it on. Hello? Earth forces. Can anyone hear me? This is Ellie Morgan. For a moment, there was only static. Then a woman's voice replied, Ellie, this is Commander Foster, Earth Marines. Where are you? Ellie almost cried with relief. I'm in the communication room, east side of the main building. The Orcs are moving the prisoners to their last ship. They have my parents. Stay where you are, Foster replied. We're coming to get you. No, Ellie said. There's no time. The prisoners will be gone. I can help you. I know this colony better than anyone. There was a pause. Then Foster said, what do you have in mind? 10 minutes later, a small team of Marines reached the communication room. Foster was surprised to find not a frightened child, but a determined young woman with a hand-drawn map. The prisoners are here. Ellie pointed to a spot on her map. The Orcs ship is here, but they have to move through this narrow passage. We can cut them off here. Foster studied the map. That's actually a good plan, but you're staying here with 2 of my Marines. Ellie shook her head. The maintenance tunnels are too small for your soldiers in armor. I need to show you the way. Foster wanted to argue, but there was no time. Fine, but you stay behind us. While the main Earth forces engaged the Orcs in the front of the colony, Foster's small team followed Ellie through narrow tunnels and hidden passages. They moved quietly, avoiding Orcs patrols. Wait, Ellie whispered, pointing to a small grate in the wall. Look. Foster peered through. In a large room below, the Orcs were gathering the containers with human prisoners. Grix, the alien leader, watched as his soldiers worked. Hurry, he clicked to his soldiers. The ship must launch before more humans arrive. Foster counted. At least 30 Orcs. Too many for our small team. We just need to slow them down until more Marines arrive, Ellie said. She pointed to pipes running along the ceiling. Those carry coolant for the colony. If we break them, Foster smiled. Smart girl. She turned to her team. Set charges on those pipes, small ones. As the Marines prepared the explosives, Foster called for backup. All teams converge on the east loading bay. We found the prisoners. Ellie watched, heart pounding. Somewhere in those containers were her parents. She would not lose them again. The charges were set. Foster looked at Ellie. Ready? Ellie nodded. Ready. Foster pressed the detonator. The explosion shook the room. Cold white gas poured from the broken pipes, filling the loading bay. The Vrex scattered, clicking in alarm as the temperature dropped rapidly. "Now!" Commander Foster shouted. Her team burst from the maintenance tunnel, weapons ready. In the confusion, they took down 6 Vrex soldiers before the aliens realized what was happening. The rest took cover behind the prisoner containers, firing back with their green energy weapons. "We need to reach those containers," Foster said, ducking behind a metal crate. Ellie pointed to a control panel across the room. "That opens all containers at once. It's the emergency release." Foster nodded. "Too far to reach with this crossfire." She touched her radio. "Where's our backup?" "5 minutes out, Commander," came the reply. "Heavy resistance in the main corridors. 5 minutes might be too late." The Vrex were reorganizing, and Grix was shouting orders. They were moving the containers again, toward their waiting ship. Ellie tugged Foster's sleeve. "There's another way." She pointed to a small duct near the floor. "That runs under the floor to the other side." Foster looked at the tiny opening. "None of my team can fit through that." "I can," Ellie said. Foster shook her head. "Absolutely not. My parents are in those containers." Ellie's eyes were fierce. "I can do this." Before Foster could stop her, Ellie slipped away and crawled into the duct. The space under the floor was tight and dark. Ellie pulled herself forward on her elbows, trying not to make noise. Above her, she could hear the battle continuing. Gunfire, shouts, the strange clicking language of the Vrex. The duct ended near the control panel she had pointed out to Foster. Ellie peered through the grate. 2 Vrex soldiers stood nearby, but they were looking at the battle, not at the floor. Ellie took a deep breath. She had one chance. She pushed open the grate and rolled out. Before the Vrex could turn, she was at the control panel, slamming her hand on the large red button. Alarms sounded. All around the room, the containers hissed as their locks released. Doors began to open. The Vrex soldiers spotted her. One fired, the energy blast hitting the wall beside Ellie's head. She ducked down, crawling under the control panel as they approached. But they never reached her. From the nearest container, a figure leaped out. It was Tom, the colony's security chief. Though weak from days of captivity, he tackled one of the Vrex to the ground. More colonists emerged, disoriented but quickly understanding the situation. They grabbed whatever they could use as weapons: metal rods, tools, pieces of their containers. Ellie's heart jumped when she saw her parents climbing out of a container. Her mother, Lisa, looked thin and pale, but her father, Alex, was already helping organize the other colonists. "Barricade the doors," Alex shouted. "Don't let them get to the ship." Foster couldn't believe what she was seeing. The prisoners were free and fighting back. Her team provided covering fire, allowing more colonists to reach safety behind crates and equipment. "All units," she called into her radio. "Prisoners are free and engaged. Need immediate support at the East Loading Bay." The battle became chaos. The Vrex had better weapons, but they were surrounded. Earth Marines on one side, angry colonists on the other. Grix, the Vrex leader, roared in fury. He aimed his weapon at the control panel where Ellie was hiding. Alex saw this and ran forward. "Ellie, look out." As Grix fired, Alex threw himself in front of the blast. He fell to the ground, a smoking wound on his shoulder. "Dad!" Ellie cried, rushing to his side. Lisa joined them, using her lab coat to press against Alex's wound. "Stay with us," she whispered to her husband. The Vrex were closing in. The colonists formed a circle around the Morgan family, ready to make their last stand. Their makeshift weapons looked small against the alien guns. Grix stepped forward, all 4 arms raised with weapons pointed at the humans. "Surrender," his translator crackled, "or die." Foster and her team were pinned down on the other side of the room, unable to help. The colonists stood firm, though fear showed on their faces. Then the wall behind Grix exploded inward, Through the hole in the wall stepped Admiral James Walker himself, flanked by a full squad of elite Marines. Their weapons were raised, targeting every Vrex in the room. "Lower your weapons," Walker commanded, his voice hard as steel. The Vrex soldiers looked to Grix for orders. The alien leader's many eyes darted around, calculating his chances. His ship was just beyond the next door, if he could reach it. "I said, lower your weapons," Walker repeated, "or we will demonstrate what happens when you take what belongs to Earth." Slowly, Grix lowered his arms. The other Vrex followed his example. Walker nodded to his Marines, who moved quickly to secure the aliens. Then he walked forward until he stood face to face with Grix. "You made a mistake," Walker said quietly. "A terrible mistake." For the first time, Grix seemed uncertain. "We have raided 100 worlds," his translator crackled. "None fight like this." "Why?" Walker looked past Grix to where Ellie sat with her injured father. "You took our children." The Admiral turned to Commander Foster. "Get these people medical attention. Priority to the wounded." Foster saluted. "Yes, sir." She began organizing her team to help the colonists. Medical teams arrived from the Earth ships. They treated Alex's wound and helped the other colonists. After days of poor food and cramped conditions, everyone was weak but alive. Ellie stayed by her father's side as a doctor checked his bandaged shoulder. "Will he be okay?" she asked, her voice small. The doctor smiled. "He'll be fine. The wound looks worse than it is." Alex reached up with his good arm and squeezed Ellie's hand. "Thanks to you, everyone made it." Lisa hugged her daughter tight. "You saved us all." Ellie shook her head. "I just called for help. Earth saved us." Across the room, Admiral Walker was speaking with Grix. The Vrex leader was now in restraints, his soldiers under guard. "You will release us," Grix demanded. "The Vrex Empire will send more ships." Walker's face showed no fear. "You are welcome to try. But first, I want you to deliver a message to your leaders." He gestured around the room. "Look at what happened here. You took one colony, one small outpost, and in response, Earth sent its full might across the stars." Walker leaned closer to Grix. "Tell your empire this. Humanity does not seek war. We do not want your territories or resources, but we protect our own. Always. Every human life matters to us, from the strongest soldier to the smallest child." He pointed to Ellie. "That girl's cry for help brought all of this. Remember that before you ever think of touching a human colony again." 1 week later, the colony was mostly repaired. Earth ships remained in orbit, a new defense station being built to protect Horizon. In the colony's main hall, a ceremony was taking place. Admiral Walker stood before the assembled colonists and soldiers. "Today," he said, "we recognize the courage that saved Horizon Colony." He called Ellie forward. She walked shyly to stand beside him. Ellie Morgan showed the bravery that defines humanity at its best. When faced with danger, she did not give up. When others needed help, she risked everything. Walker pinned a small medal to Ellie's shirt. "The Star of Valor, our highest civilian honor." The room filled with applause. Ellie blushed, but stood tall. Later, as the Earth ships prepared to leave a well-defended Horizon, Ellie stood with her parents watching from a viewing platform. "Will they come back?" she asked. The Vrex. Admiral Walker, who had come to say goodbye, shook his head. "I don't think so. They learned something important about humans today." "What's that?" Ellie asked. Walker smiled. "That we come when called. That distance doesn't matter. That every human life is worth crossing the stars for." He looked up at the stars appearing in the evening sky. "That's our strength. Not our ships or our weapons, but that we stand together, always." The Admiral saluted Ellie before turning to leave. "The Vrex now know what happens when someone threatens our family. That message will spread across the galaxy." Ellie stood between her parents, watching Earth's mighty fleet rise into the darkening sky, knowing that no matter how far humans traveled among the stars, they would never be truly alone. The end